Greetings from the Sinhaga Dental College and Hospital, Pune. We, Dr. Bhushan Bhagat and Dr. Narayan Dattapande, would like to thank Dr. Suryanshi sir and Dr. Sanjay Chandan for their support and encouragement. We will show you an MCQ presentation of summer 2015. Coming to the first MCQ.
Anterior open bite occurs in the fracture of A. Parasymphysis, B. Unilateral condyle, C. Bilateral angle, and D. Bilateral condyles. The most appropriate answer is answer D. Bilateral condyles. Bilateral condyle may result in marked anterior open bite and retrognathia. The action of medial pterygoid and masseter on the distal segment causes telescoping, resulting in premature contact in the posterior occlusion with rotation of mandible around this and resulting in anterior open bite. Rarely bilateral, horizontal and vertically unfavorable fracture may present with open bite. That because of upward and medial displacement of posterior fragments with downward angulation and forward displacement of body of mandible, resulting in open bite. So bilateral angle on rare occasion may present with open bite. So, but still the most common and most appropriate answer seems to be D, bilateral condyles. Unilateral condyles we know results in contralateral posterior open bite. Similarly, parasymphysis results in posterior open bite. Question number 2.
Question number 2. In Gillies temporal approach for reduction of zygomatic arch fracture, the rose zygomatic elevator is placed between options are superficial fascia and temporal fascia, B. Temporal bone and temporalis muscle, C. Between temporalis fascia and temporalis muscle, D. Skin and superficial fascia. So the correct option is C. That is in between temporal fascia and temporalis muscle. Here, Gillies temporal approach is the indirect approach for reduction of zygomatic arch fracture. Temporal incision, which is 2 cm in length, made 2.5 cm superior and anterior to the helix, which is hairline. During this, avoid injury to the superficial temporal artery. Instrument is inserted deep to deep temporalis fascia and superficial to the temporalis muscle. Instrument should be medial to the depressed zygomatic arch. Outward force is applied. Arch should be palpated at all times as to guide for proper reduction. Coming to the next question.
Extraction of an isolated residual maxillary erupted molar offers the technical hazard of which of the following? Fracture of the malar ridge, B. Fracture of maxillary tuberosity or floor of the sinus, C. Development of maxillary sinusitis, and D. Displacement into infratemporal fossa. The most appropriate answer is B. Fracture of maxillary tuberosity or floor of the sinus. Continuous pneumatization of maxillary sinus in the maxilla will result in lowering of the floor of the sinus and weakening of the maxillary tuberosity around the isolated residual maxillary erupted molars. So this situation is definite risk factor for tuberosity fracture and or floor fracture. Another close option could be maxillary sinusitis, which may appear as early or late postoperative complication secondary to oroantral communication, though not necessarily. So the most appropriate answer appears to be option B. Dislocation of tooth into infratemporal fossa is a rare and serious intraoperative complication of deeply impacted third molar, and malar ridge is relatively resistant to fracture. So the most appropriate answer is option B. Now question number 4. Intentional fracture of zygomatic arch and reunion can be done as a treatment for repeated dislocation of the condyle. This procedure is called as A. Stobbe's method, B. Denker's method, C. Daugherty's procedure, and D. Weber's procedure. The answer is C. Daugherty's procedure. We know that option A, Stobbe's method, is related to extraction of multiple lower anterior, where tooth may be used as fulcrum instead of bone while using straight elevator. Denker method is related to anteromedial maxillectomy, often done endoscopically. And Weber's procedure is related to maxillectomy, where access to maxilla is generally obtained by designing a classical extraoral Weber percussion incision. Now question number 5. Umber line in Winter's classification of impacted teeth represents A. Angulation of impacted third molar, B. The level of alveolar bone covering the impacted tooth, C. The depth of the third molar, and D. The point of application of elevator. The correct answer is B. The level of alveolar bone covering the impacted tooth. Angulation of impacted third molar may be interpreted from white line. Option C, the depth of third molar may be interpreted from the red line. And the point of application of elevator is always on the mesiobuccal aspect of C junction, except in distoangular impaction, where the point is on distal side. So the right answer is option B. Now question number 6.
Question number 6. In Lefort 1 fracture, the infraorbital ring is, options are bilaterally involved, involved medially, not involved, may or may not involve. Here, the correct option is C, that is a not involved. In Lefort 1 fractures, as we know, Lefort 1 fractures are low level fractures, urine fractures, horizontal fracture, floating fractures, and subzygomatic fractures. According to the Rennie-Lefort in 1901, fracture line runs backward, which starts from lateral margin of the piriform aperture, lateral wall of the maxillary sinus, below the zygomatic buttress, posterolateral surface of the maxilla, crosses pterygomaxillary fissure, and fractures the lower one-third of the pterygoid lamina. Ideally, there is no involvement of the infraorbital ring in Lefort 1 fractures. Infraorbital ring is involved in Lefort 2 and blowout fractures. Coming to the blowout fractures are of two types: pure blowout and impure blowout. Pure blowout fractures, it is a purely only orbital floor is involved. So it is a orbital floor and no orbital ring is involved. It is a pure blowout fractures. Coming to the impure blowout fractures, orbital floor plus orbital ring is involved. So basically, infraorbital ring is involved in Lefort 2 fractures and impure blowout fractures. Coming to the next question.
Which is the common boundary of submandibular and sublingual space? A. Medial pterygoid muscle, B. mylohyoid, C. buccinator, and D. geniohyoid muscle. The right answer is mylohyoid muscle, option B. Mylohyoid muscle forms the superior boundary of submandibular space and inferior boundary of sublingual space. Thus, mylohyoid muscle separates sublingual space superiorly from submandibular space inferiorly. Medial pterygoid muscle forms the medial boundary of pterygomandibular space and lateral boundary of lateral pharyngeal space. Buccinator muscle forms the medial boundary of buccinator space. Geniohyoid muscle do not form definitive boundary. Now question number 8.
Coming to the question number 8.
The problem that can be anticipated in a patient suffering from severe cirrhosis of the liver undergoing minor surgery is A. Extreme susceptibility to pain, B. Tendency towards prolonged hemorrhage, C. Increased tendency to syncope, and D. Recurring oral infection. The most appropriate answer is option B. Tendency towards prolonged hemorrhage. We know that liver cirrhosis is generally considered an irreversible condition characterized by progressive fibrosis and abnormal regeneration of liver architecture in response to chronic conditions like alcoholism. Bleeding tendencies are significant features in advanced disease. The basis for this diathesis is in part due to deficiency of vitamin K dependent coagulation factors, that is factor 2, 7, 9, and 10. In addition to that, there may be thrombocytopenia and accelerated fibrinolysis in such patients. So the right answer is tendency towards prolonged hemorrhage. Now the next question.
Coming to the next question. Administration of adrenaline for local hemostasis during surgery might result in, options are hypoglycemia, cardiac arrhythmia, hypotension, acute asthmatic attack. So the correct answer is P, cardiac arrhythmias. It is noticed that there is a potential risk of inducing hypertensive crisis and cardiac arrhythmia in patients with underlying cardiovascular disease. Concentration and speed of injection adrenaline should be well maintained. For large volume of adrenaline injection, ECG and pulse oximeter monitoring should be used to detect arrhythmias. Coming to the next question, the sudden appearance of dumbbell-shaped swelling after administration of ESA block, which is due to penetration in, here options are maxillary artery, pterygoid plexus of veins, retropalatine artery, sphenopalatine artery. The correct option is A, maxillary artery. Please note, in this question, posterior supralunar nerve block was given, dumbbell swelling was given, and the sudden appearance should be considered. So the option A is more correct, that's maxillary artery. The unintentional leaking of the blood vessels, either pterygoid plexus of veins or maxillary artery, with needle during the injection of local anesthesia might result in the infusion of the blood into extravascular spaces with subsequent hematoma formation. So there are two types of hematoma, arterial and venous hematoma. Among this, arterial hematoma increases in size rapidly due to greater blood pressure within the artery. Remember, most common hematoma is venous hematoma, but it is not sudden in appearance. So more correct option is maxillary artery. Coming to the next question. The pharmacological management of vasovagal shock may involve the use of which of the following agents? Examples are, options are adrenaline, atropine, aminophylline, atenolol. So the correct option is B, atropine. In vasovagal shock, there is a sudden drop in the heart rate, that is bradycardia, and decreased blood pressure, that is the hypotension, showing non-compensatory shock. So the drug of choice for bradycardia in this case is a atropine. So B is a correct option. Coming to the next question.
Which of the following is not an antiseptic? A, 70% ethanol, B, povidone iodine, C, 2% glyceraldehyde, and D, Savlon. The correct answer is 2% glyceraldehyde. That is option C. Ethanol, povidone iodine, and Savlon are very common antiseptic. 2% glyceraldehyde, popularly known as Sidex, is used for disinfection of objects sensitive to light, sensitive to heat. This glyceraldehyde is toxic and irritant, so they are used not as an antiseptic but as a disinfectant. Now, next question.
Coming to the next question. While administering an infraalveolar nerve block, the needle is lateral to the raphe from by buccinator and options are middle pterygoid muscle, medial constrictor of pharynx, superior constrictor, myloid muscle. So the correct option is superior constrictor of pharynx. Here the raphe means pterygomandibular raphe, which is formed by buccinator and superior constrictor of pharynx. Raphe is usually curved in shape. Coming to the next question. The concentration of adrenaline for treatment of anaphylactic shock is, options are 1:100, 1:1000, 1:1 lakh, 1:2 lakh. So the correct option is B, that is a 1:1000. So for 1:1000 concentration is for anaphylactic shock, which is given intramuscular or subcutaneous. The magnitude of this is 0.5 mg. Remember, 1:1000 for anaphylactic shock used as an emergency drug, but 1:1000, 1:10,000 for local hemostasis, 1:1 lakh, 1:2 lakh for local anesthesia. Coming to the next question. An intranasal enterostomy is usually done by creating an opening in, options are superior meatus, middle meatus, inferior meatus, and canine fossa. So The correct option is inferior meatus. In this, large dependent opening in the medial wall of the antrum is made in the inferior meatus. This allows good irrigation of the maxillary sinus and allows the restoration of the ciliary motion. Please note, if other MCQ can be asked like opening of maxillary sinus, that is a ostium, can be asked which is in the middle meatus. Coming to the next question.
Patients presenting with fracture of symphysis region should be suspected of having which of the following fractures? A. Fracture of angle of mandible. B. Fracture of the condyles. C. Fracture of the mid-palatine area. And D. Fracture of the mid-cranial fossa. The most appropriate answer is option B. Fracture of condyles. We know that majority of condylar fracture arises from indirect blunt trauma to the anterior mandible. Another close option could be fracture of middle cranial fossa, because central dislocation of condylar head into middle cranial fossa, especially if the injury is sustained with mouth wide open, is a rare possibility, but may happen. The other two options, like fractures of angle of mandible, they are generally related to direct trauma, and fracture of mid-palatine area is associated with the fracture of mid-face. So the most appropriate answer is option B, fracture of the condyles. Now question number 17. Lignocaine is metabolized primarily in which of the following organs? A. Liver, B. Plasma, C. Kidney, and D. Spleen. The primary site of biotransformation of amide drug is liver. So lignocaine being amide is metabolized in the liver. The other similar drugs are articaine, mepivacaine, and bupivacaine. They are all amide drugs, and they will be metabolized primarily in the liver. Ester local anesthetics like procaine, chloroprocaine, tetracaine are hydrolyzed in the plasma by enzyme pseudocholinesterase. Now question number 18. While removing a stone from anterior portion of the Wharton's duct, the incision is placed A. Perpendicular to the duct, B. Parallel to the duct, C. 2 inches below the inferior border of mandible, and D. None of the above. The correct answer is B. Parallel to the duct. The incision is made in the mucosa parallel to the duct, and care must be taken not to injure the lingual nerve or sublingual glands. When the duct is located, longitudinal slit is made directly over the stone. The duct should not be cut transversely because retraction may complete the division and fistula may present. Option C, which is 2 inches below the inferior border of mandible, could be an answer if submandibular gland excision is planned. So the right answer is B, parallel to the duct. Now question number 19.
Coming to the next question. Chemical cauterization used in odontogenic keratocyst. Options are methylene blue, tolubolson, carnage solution, and genetine violet. So the correct option here is 19C, that is a carnage solution. We know carnage solution, it is after enucleation, carnage solution is applied, which is a fixative, hemostatic, and cauterizing agent, which penetrate calcaneous spaces, and it fixes and devitalizes left out the epithelial remnant cells. Remember the depth of penetration after 3 to 5 minutes of the application. In bone, it is 1.5 mm. It is in the nerve 0.2 mm, and in mucosa 0.5 mm. The composition of carnage solutions are 1 gram ferrichloride, 1 ml glacial acetic acid, 3 ml chloroform, and 6 ml of absolute alcohol. Coming to the next question. The Sir William Kelsey Fry technique can potentially cause damage to which of the following structures? Options are facial nerve, inferior alveolar nerve, lingual nerve, and buccal nerve. So the correct option is C, lingual nerve. Sir William Kelsey Fry technique, it is given in 1933. It is a lingual split bone technique, and it is popularized by T. Ward afterwards. It is a quick and clean technique used for mandibular third molar, especially those which are placed lingually and distally. This technique can reduce the operative time and requires good tactile sense. and experience of the operator. So thank you and happy learning.